knitters, welcome to episode 162 of the Knitty McPurly Podcast. I'm your host, Devin AT. You can find me at KnittyMcPurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly on Instagram, and if you want to email me, I am Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. If you don't know how to spell that stuff, it's all down below. Hit subscribe and thumbs up while you're down there. That would be amazing. Thank you so much. I'm enjoying some tea out of my lovely Tennessee mug today. Hi, Flo. Thank you so much for my mug. Love it. Kind of feel like I've exited the coffee phase of the morning and I am fully embracing the tea phase. We have sun today. This is like the first podcast in weeks where there's actual sun. It's been a lot of dreariness, but it's okay. It's all good. I like all of it. All right, folks, let's move right along to progress and shop news. If you read my newsletter on Friday, then you know that I spent the first part of last week being sick, which is such a waste of time. I really just hate being sick. It didn't last very long though, so I really can't complain. I was just, sick. I don't know. I just felt terrible and didn't want to do anything. But by Wednesday night, I was really getting on to being pretty much well again. So it's been a busy week. After that, I introduced a few new things over in the shop. I've been planning this stuff for a while. It's a little confusing because I have a color of the month, but for January, February, and March, each month I'm also going to be introducing a new permanent colorway. So I'm going to start there. This permanent colorway that I introduced this month has been in the works for a very, very long time. You guys have no idea how hard it is to dye white. You might think, Devin, sheep are white. This is not hard. It's just white. Should be simple, but it's not, because undyed yarn has ugly yellow undertones that I don't like. I don't want to have that in my white. So I tried many things. Many things. And it's not until now that I came across a white that worked, is easily repeatable, and looks amazing. It's a very warm cream color. My new permanent colorway is called Jovis. It's gonna blow out a little bit. Let me, there, that's me. It's a little better. Yeah, there it is. So here it is in Dresden DK and Frankfurt fingering. So this color will be available across the bases. Here it is in worsted and St. Petersburg, super bulky. Let's see. Dubrovnik DK. This is Munich mohair. Stockholm Surrey silk. Isn't it beautiful? Gosh, I hate when it blows out because it's so pretty. I love it so much. So here it is on Amsterdam Aran. It is just a gorgeous, gorgeous color. And the reason that I put this color out in January is because January is such a white month, or at least we hope that it will be, right? We hope for snow. It's not a red and green month like December. It's just a very white month. If I had a secondary color to pick, it would be maybe blue. And it actually looks kind of amazing with, what's this called? Frost. So the white, as you might think, goes with everything. Sometimes you just need a white. I'm so excited. You guys, I've been wanting it for so long, and it's here. I'm so happy. Look at that. Fontaine, Jovis, and Poirot. So I thought it would be cool if January's color of the month had the Jovis color as its background. So let me get you a skein. I've got a bunch of skeins here. Let me get you one that there you can see it a little bit better. So this is January's color of the month. It has Jovis as the base color, and then it has some very, very fun speckles in there. So you can get that in Frankfurt fingering, Dubrovnik DK, or as a sock set with this mini. Isn't it pretty? Gosh, it's so pretty. I think all the speckles are under the band. So that's available now. Yay. So anyway, that's why I put the white out in January, because January is a white month. And that's why I went with a whitish color for January. And I hope you guys like the sock sets. So this is something new this month. You can get a skein or a sweater quantity of it in fingering or Dubrovnik DK or as a sock set. So head on over to the website if you're interested in that. The way that I came up with the name Jovis, this happens a lot, like with Poirot and Fontaine. Any others? I don't think so. Where I'm reading a book and the color reminds me of a character in the book. So with this color, I was reading The Robe by Lloyd Douglas, which is an old book. I first read it in college, and it came out in the 50s maybe it was written in the 40s. I feel like it was actually written during World War II. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like when I looked, it was like 1942 or something. So it's an old book. You may have read it already. If you have already read it and you haven't read it in a while, I recommend that you pull it out and read it again. And if you've never read this book, you should absolutely drop whatever book you're reading and go read this book. It has everything. It's got Jesus, it's got adventure, it's got romance. It is a wonderful, wonderful story. And it's just a great Christian adventure story. The gist of it, it's called The Robe, because you remember when Jesus died on the cross, the Roman officials cast lots for his robe and one of them got it. Well, it's the story of that, what happened after that with them. So it's a really, really good story. It's fiction. It's historical fiction. There's a movie, but I don't recommend it. The movie is not good. It was one of those where they thought, ooh, let's make a movie about this and let's just put a lot of famous people in it and not really care about the story. That's just my opinion. Maybe you love the movie. I don't know. But anyway, Jovis is the name of the villa that the Emperor Tiberius built for Diana. And it's described as just being so white with the marble, the Carrara marble. And I thought that is and I love the way the word sounds, Jovis. It just has a really cool sound. So that is why this colorway got that name. I'm excited. I feel like it's been 2 years that I've been trying to get a good white. Not consistently, but over the course of 2 years, it's hard to do. If you see a dyer who has white, they worked hard to get it, or they got lucky on the first try. I did not. I definitely did not. But I just wanted to show you a little bit. I know I did this last week, but you guys really liked it. So I wanted to show you some color combinations. Here is Jovis with Dusty and Roxette. How about, I'm dropping stuff. It just looks good with everything because it's white. White goes with everything. There it is with Black Forest Cake and Roxette. Let's do Beryl and Bosque. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh my gosh, it just looks so good. What haven't I shown? Morel and Pewter. These all are very similar, but that's got a really kind of wintry vibe too. This is a favorite combination of mine. Green and yellow, Meadow and Trinket. I like that a lot. But anyway, if you're in the market for a white, Jovis is your girl, and she will be around for the long haul. So unlike January's color of the month, which will only be available as supplies last, the Jovis will be around for the long haul. So I decided to knit my spring sweater in this color. It's just such a great neutral. I'm very excited about it. Really, really pumped. So in case you hadn't noticed, I am wearing my striped Diggory tee. I'm struggling with words today. Some days you just can't get the right word. Maybe I should have stuck with the coffee for longer. So this is the Diggory tee that I knit striped. See, I did an exposed seam here because this t-shirt is knit from the bottom up. So you're left with live stitches here, and you can either Kitchener them or you can do a 3-needle bind off, which is what I did here to get that exposed seam look. And I've got my join necklace on too. Got my stitch markers in case I need any, which I might, because I am hoping that later today I can get some knitting done. That's gonna be really, really fun. Even though it is sunny out, it's still like 30 degrees. So it's not like a fun day to hang out outside. Okay, all right, topic of the week. This week's topic of the week, as I mentioned last week, is needle organization. And I asked last week if you wanted to share your needle organization and I could put it on the podcast, and many of you replied. It's so interesting because so many people do this in a myriad of ways, so many ideas. Not one of the people who sent in the way that they organize it do it the way that I do, which I just thought was so interesting. I've seen needle organizers online that are very expensive, and like they're often like leather and fancy, and I still feel like you're gonna be stuck with the problem of I have too many needles for that organizer, because that really is that's one of the cruxes of the problem, is that we have too many needles. And this topic that I'm gonna address again in the comments mentioned by Cheryl, because I have the same problem, is after I use a needle, I don't put it back. That, overcoming that problem is like the biggest part of staying organized. And some of you are the kind of people who always put everything back. Like my oldest daughter, my mom, these are people who put things away when they are done. But I tend to not do that. My brain is just not like that, but I can develop the habits to become a better person, and becoming a better person involves putting stuff away. So when I get to talk about my organization, I'm going to show you how I've made it easier for me to put things away. But first, I want to share with you what many of you do. All right, the first contributor is Barb. Hi, Barb. I met Barb at the retreat in January last year ago. And Barb sent me this little video, which I'll put up right here. She says, "Hi, Devin. This is how I organize my extra circular needles. The top section I use for the extra wires of different lengths. This way, when I go to use them, they don't curl up when I'm trying to knit. This way, when I need a specific size and length, all I have to do is eyeball my supply and then go online and get more needles. Of course, my needle sets are still in their cases." Now, this last sentiment was echoed by everyone. Everyone keeps their needle sets in the cases that they came with, and I do too. I only have 2 needle sets. I have the Leica one and a Chowgu one, and I forgot to bring them up here, but that's, you know what they look like. They're just in the container that they came in. Everyone agreed to do that. So Barb's wall hangy thing, I had not seen before. And one thing I really like about it is what she said about how the needles, the cords stay not wound tightly. They're stretched out so that when you go to use them, they're not all wonky. And that is really nice. And also, it's a visual where you can look at it and see what you have before you're like, because I mean, if you were storing them the way that I was, which I do not have a picture of because it is embarrassing. It was basically just a pile of needles that I kind of hung on a hook. It was terrible. So if you're doing that, you don't know what you have. You can't see what's going on there at all. But this organizer, I think, really helps with that. So then I had another contributor email me and say, "Hi, Devin, my name is Kathy, and I have designed and sell a knitting needle organizer for circular needles that I sell on Etsy." So I went to Kathy's Etsy site, and it's Wonderfully Made for You, EWEU. And I just took this little video of going through what's on her site because she sells an organizer very similar to the one that Barb was using, where the needles the cords can stay flat and then just hang down the sides. And if you don't like the look of it, you can always tuck those ends in. That is nice too. So Kathy has offered a code. The code is, wait a minute, KMP Save 15 for 15% off everything in her store if you like something that you see on the video. And this code is good from today through the end of January. So I will link her shop below if you want to go and shop there, and I'll have the code down there too so that you can remember what it is to get 15% off if you wanted one of these needle organizers or some other cute, adorable thing that she has on her website. She has those rope bowls and knitting bags, all good stuff. Okay, my next contributor is Jen V. Hi, Jen. And Jen's approach is basically to keep her knitting needles, the ones that didn't come in sets, in pencil case type bags. She says, I'm attaching pictures of my own organization, which is basically hyper organized. I think Jen is probably a person who puts the needles away when she's done using them. It took me a while to get here, but I'm happy having it this way. You are welcome to use all of my pictures, but please know that I didn't just run out and buy a full collection of chow goos. I used to work at a knitting store, and I used that time wisely. Not only did I use my generous employee discount to purchase my needles, but I also used my paycheck. A bit about the organizers. I understand that Chica has gone out of business. Some of these are made by a company called Chica. Her pouches were way too cute to pass them on, so I've kept them, knowing that if they ever die, I will have to do something different. In these two pouches, I store my backup needles and DPNs, which do not get used quite as much. My main knitting needles are used in a Tom Bin size 2 handy little things pouch with 2 pencil cases. Tom Bin or Bean, B-I-H-N, works on a rotating production line, so not all items are available all the time. But with patience, anyone can build this setup. TB, Tom Bin or Bean, is an American company owned and operated in Portland, Oregon. I consider this my main knitting needle organization. It's basically breath of my breath, flesh of my flesh. I would cry if I ever lost it. So much so that it has an Apple tag of its own. Wow. I only own one Apple tag, and do you know what I put it on? Guess. Charlotte. She's got a little watch band, and so I can always see where she is. Jen says, additionally, I use a black Right in the Rain pouch to pull out single project needles and notions. This helps with portability and keeping projects straight. So she even has a special case for the needles that she's currently using in her current project. That is like, that's, wow. My needles will go in the bag. I have a bag for each project, but I can't imagine, or like that's someone who has an Apple tag and describes her knitting organization as flesh of her flesh. Yeah. Okay. She said, now this right here, if none of that shocked you, this will shock you, unless you're like this too, and then you won't be shocked by it. Jen says, I tend to only have 1 or 2 projects going at a time, which has been the single largest help to keeping my needles and knitting organized. Yes, I can totally get that. That is really the biggest part of the problem, because I own the needles, but they're in a project somewhere. And over time, I have reined that in so that I don't have a million projects going in any given place. But I'll have 3 or 4 projects, and I'll have all the bags in one place so that I can see if that's where the needles are. Because over time, I have just rebought needles, so I end up with a lot of some sizes. The next contributor is a lovely knitter named Jay, and I love her organization. This really resonated with me. It's probably the one that's the most similar to what I do. Jay says, hi, Devin. I'm always so grateful that you take the time to make your podcast. Thank you so much. As a fellow Christian, I really enjoy being able to listen and enjoy with no worries that you will wander into areas that I don't want to hear. Awesome. Fun, happy, safe, interesting listening. Thank you. So I have attached 2 photos of my knitting needle storage, and I'll put those up here. I have my straight needles in a roll-up storage case because I hardly ever use them except for the DPNs. I use circulars whenever possible, and I always want just the right length for the project, so I have lots. I ordered some 5x7 photo storage boxes from Amazon, got out my label maker, and had a blast organizing them. I love organizing too. You wouldn't think that I'm naturally kind of not an organized person with the amount that I love to organize. Anyway, Jay says, now I can lay my hands on whatever size, length, and needle type I want. Metal, lace tip, bamboo, etc. I keep them in a dresser drawer in my bedroom, so they're always super handy and easy to keep up with since I love to organize. I tried one of those wall-hanging circular organizers, but I didn't like the visual chaos. Plus, it is too easy to put one in the wrong slot. This works perfectly for me, but I know it would probably drive some people crazy. I'm just one of those weird people who loves to try and exert order in my little universe. I think we all do that, and we just pick and choose the places where we're going to do it. And it makes me really happy to have all of my knitting needles organized, less time hunting for them and more time knitting with them. Okay, awesome. So I loved this. It takes up a little more space than what I did, but it's the same general idea. So we'll come back to that. Lindsay, who's always yarn first, sent in her system of organizing, and she says, I have my needle storage in different places, but it's all in an arm's reach from my desk. My DPNs are on my IKEA cart in pouches. I have one of every size from 0 to 10. My interchangeable sets are all in their original packaging in an open bin. All individual fixed needles are in this options box I got from Hobby Lobby. I keep them in original packaging, or I write on a snack size Ziploc bag the size. Second drawer is 0 to 3, last drawer is 4 and above. First drawer and space under the lid is for little notions I don't use regularly. So this is another good way to organize where you've got everything right near you. She's using a box from Hobby Lobby that's like a craft storage box that you could use for whatever craft it is. And that seems to work really well. I love those little IKEA carts. I have one that I use for when I do people's nails. I just like roll the cart out and I can do nails. So those are really handy too. Super awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. So my best budget solution came from Pamela. Pamela says, when I came up with this system, I was doing it on the cheap and used things I already had. The basket came from the Dollar Tree, and I had baggies and index cards on hand as well. I wrote the size and lengths of the needles, so all I have to do is pull the bag, they're in numerical order, so I can just go through them and find what I need. I also keep a needle gauge in the back of the basket so I can check the needles just in case I put one in the wrong bag. I love this because it is budget friendly. This is almost free. Like she spent $1 on the basket and the rest was just stuff that she had. Now, this probably works for Pamela because she's naturally organized, I'm gonna guess. If I did something like this, I wouldn't respect it. I wouldn't respect the bags and it would become a mess very quickly. I don't know why. I just wouldn't. I would just chuck them in there. I don't know. Unpack that psychologically. I have no idea why I wouldn't. But if you respect it, then, and you're willing to keep it neat, gosh, that's perfect. Absolutely great, great solution. Thank you to all of you who sent in the way you organize your needles. This was super helpful. I thought it was so interesting that we all do something different. Other than keeping the sets together, everyone agreed that that is the way to do it. So let me get on to my needle storage journey. This is a picture that I put on Instagram a couple of years ago, And I got this idea from Bristol Ivy because she put it on her Instagram. And the gist is it's just a corkboard with pins where you've got all of the needles of one size on a binder clip labeled with the size. And that's very simple. I've got a couple of needle gauges hanging up there. You can see my Leica set is in this brown thing is something I made early in my knitting days. I really didn't know anything when I made it. And so it's not super useful. Here I have double points in it. The top part is all double points. And then the ones on the bottom are Knit Picks interchangeables that don't come with their own case. Or maybe they do now, but back when I bought them, they didn't. So I have those in there too. There's also some crochet hooks. You can see that when I made this brown thing, I didn't leave more space for bigger needles. Like I just made all the slots the same size. I didn't follow a pattern or anything. I just kind of went with an idea in my head. So this was somewhat useful for some amount of time. The problem was that it was hard to put needles away. Because to put needles away, you had to open the binder clip, which meant all the other needles would kind of spread out. And also, keeping them so tightly wound is just not the best way to do it. If they're ChowGoos, which a lot of them are, then that cord has no memory. But you can see that there are some clear cords in there. What else is in there? There's some Knit Picks, interchangeable cords in there, and they don't have that lack of memory that the ChowGoo cords have. So it ended up becoming kind of a mess. And plus I reorganized my house. Where this used to be on the wall, I removed it a couple years ago to hang an ironing board holder thingy that holds the iron and all that. So this has moved around a little bit and it doesn't move well. When you move it, everything falls off. So this was not an ideal solution. Recently, I had that pile that I described of circular needles that I was just kind of hanging in places, and I had all my DPNs in a cup. It was not great. It was hard to find things. I really didn't know what I had. And so I thought it would work. I thought maybe the best way to do it would be to put them in a binder. So here's what I did. I got this giant 4-inch binder, and I haven't decorated it yet, but it's the kind where you can slide in, a paper so that I could make it pretty. And then inside, I got basically pencil pouches, and I labeled it with the US size and the millimeters. And then I put every single needle of that size in the pouch. So I've got one for each size. The good thing is that you see how they're just in there? They don't have to go in a certain way. You just put them in there and then you know where they are. So here we've got the size 2s, and I got these pouches. I splurged a little bit on the pouches. They were $5 each. So this whole thing cost me about $60. You can get cheaper ones, but I wanted the higher quality. Another good thing is that when you unzip them, see how there's this little bit of a lip right here? That keeps them from spewing out. That just kind of holds them in, which is really nice. So these go all the way up. I've got the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, and I got them in every color. We got 4s, 5s, have a lot of 6s, 7, 8. Now, I don't have a lot of 9s, so I also included my Knit Picks interchangeable cords and accessories like needle sizers and those little keys that you use to twist on your interchangeables. So I put those in there. I could have gotten another pouch, but I just didn't feel like I needed to. And then we've got US 10 and 10.5, and then 11s, and then everything bigger than that. So I've got a total of 12 pouches in a binder. What do you think? I thought I could put it on a shelf. I could maybe make it pretty here and put it on a shelf. It's Easy to get to. It reminded me the most of Jay's, where she had them in boxes. It's a very similar way to store them because you're just kind of quick and dirty throwing them in a place. If I have to do too much organizing, I'm less likely to put them away. I think that this kind of big receptacle of all the needles of that size is the best way to store them for a person who is not inclined to put them away after using them. So that's what I did. I'd love to hear what you think. So many good ideas. So many good ideas. All right, let's move on to the comments. Some of these, they're not knitting related, but they're hilarious, so I'm gonna share them. Denise says, hi Devin, your story about the lever versus the round doorknob, so you can see I've got the lever ones over there, and Gigi being trapped in the closet reminded me of a tale my mom tells from 1963 when I was 2. We lived in Texas and it was a hot, hot summer. Our washer and dryer were out in the garage, and one morning my mom ran out there in a short, skimpy nightgown to start a load of laundry. Alone inside, I just pulled the door closed and it automatically locked. After many minutes of trying to cajole and explain unlocking to my 2-year-old mind, she had to venture around the neighborhood in her skimpy nightgown looking for help. She said her mind was reeling with all the ways I could get injured being unsupervised. This was a time when men were at work and most women stayed home. So she and a neighbor wound up calling the police, who came and broke into the house to find me unscathed and happily playing alone in my mom's makeup and lipstick. That is awesome. 2-year-olds are just the best. They have a tremendous capacity for getting into trouble, and it's usually fine in the end. Hopefully. Glad it was in that case as it was for Gigi. User JX2 says, Happy New Year. What a great podcast. Loved So Here's What Happened. I would have given up long before it was ever finished. What a dedicated knitter and a loving mom. I got a lot of comments like this, Karen. People really were impressed with your stick-to-itiveness. She says, could you say something in your next podcast about the frog with the little crown? This one, the one that's pink here, has the pom-poms. The one with the crown, I think, is in Gigi's room. So this is the Bunimals knitting pattern by Fuzzy Mitten, and you can find this over on Etsy. I'll link it below. It's so cute. Okay. Jen says, Devin, I think you should be nicer to yourself when it comes to administrative duties and details. It's okay to make the target. I will grow and give my best daily, even if it's not everyone else's best. You're a mom, an entrepreneur, and an excellent knitter. Well, thank you so much, Jen. That is so kind of you. I really appreciate it. It's a fine line between knowing what you can do and doing it well, and keeping the goal of becoming a better person and getting good at those things that are hard for you to do. It's good to do that, but it's not good to beat up on yourself. And I don't know, I think it's a fine line. You have to walk that line because you don't want to, everything I do is fine, it's all fine, but you also don't want to be beating up on yourself because you're not perfect. So yeah, I try to be better today than I was yesterday. Some days I succeed and some days I don't. Wise Owl Knits, this is Cheryl, said, I had to smile when you asked about how to organize your needles. I have tried so many different methods, and honestly, they all work if you can manage to put your needles away once you are finished using them. And that is really the part that always trips me up. Me too, Cheryl, me too. I had just decided that I will have a dedicated basket where I will put my needles once I finished a project if I just can't manage to put them away, like a holding bin, like a waiting room kind of a place. That's a good idea. Maybe they will at least all be in one place before I get around to putting them away. I have a cubby where I keep my interchangeable cases, And I have a hanging holder with sleeves for all the different sizes for my fixed circulars and other hanging holder for my DPNs. The DPNs stay organized because I normally magic loop rather than using the DPNs. I love that. Oh, these are very organized because I don't use them. Yes. I do have some flexi flips too, but they come in those cute little tubes, so I'm pretty good at putting them away. When I first got my first set of flexi flips, I was knitting out on the deck. I think we all know where this is going. We've all been there. I dropped one, and of course, it fell through the tiny crack between the boards. I was upset because they're pretty expensive, and there's no way to get under my deck unless you're a feral cat or a tiny bunny or my daughter-in-law's dog who likes to hunt tiny bunnies. My husband saved the day with a telescoping magnet and the removal of one of the side boards of the deck. Wow. He also saw a bunch of stitch markers under the deck, but just left them there for the archaeologists to wonder about later on. The next week, I bought some deck rugs for insurance against more dropped knitting supplies. Yeah, if you've got one of those decks that you can't get under, that would be terrible. My deck, we can just crawl right under there. It's got like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 feet of space, or not 4 feet, maybe 3 feet of space we can crawl under there. So that's nice. And I have had to crawl under there multiple times. I don't go for stitch markers though. I'm like, they're just gone. I think of those as kind of, what's the word? Disposable? Melissa Emery says, how dare you tell me the truth that I am lazy and disorganized, says the lady whose email hasn't been checked in a week. I know. My dad one time, one of my kids picked up his phone, and you know that little icon that's your mail, and there's a little number there of like how many unread emails you have. Normally it's like 10 or 15. His was like 38,000. They were like, oh, I'm sure it was Alexis. She would be the one who'd be like, how can you have this many unread emails? No, I get it. I know. This is where I get it from. But no more. I am now good at email, for sure. Pam Knits Too says, and I think she was talking about patronizing the businesses that you want to benefit from. Like we were talking about, you know, if you're going to go knit at the knitting store, you should also be patronizing that store. And Pam says, that's the way I feel about your podcast. I really enjoy watching it every week, so I make a point of purchasing from you to help you support your work. I love your relationship with your children. They are so fortunate. That's really sweet. I mean, you know, this is just what we put on the internet. We're very real. We keep it real. In fact, I told them, I'm like, I'm going to film the podcast, so no screaming matches, all right? No fighting. Oh, she says, do you have a pattern for Charlotte's crown? I would love to make one for my granddaughter. That is, and I'll link it below, the Easy and Quick Knit Crown Headband by Sydney and Grace on Etsy. And it is a great little pattern. Very, very fun. Charlotte's points have kind of started to, you know, roll over a little bit. Even though there are directions for shoring up the points, which I did, it is still stockinette and it wants to roll. And I thought about putting some pipe cleaners in there to make them stand up, but Charlotte sleeps in it and I don't want her to get poked in the eye in her sleep. So if you're going to be giving it to someone who does not need to wear a crown 24 hours a day, then I would definitely do that. Karen, who submitted the story last week, said, I have never test knit anything, so I don't really have an opinion on it other than do what works for you. Follow up on my daughter's offset striped sweater. She has worn it often since Christmas. She wore it yesterday when we were at Chick-fil-A, and she had several people tell her that they really liked it. And she said those magic words, my mom made it. Words to warm a knitting mother's heart. By the way, Son of a Motherless Goat is my favorite also. That is awesome, awesome. I got so many good comments. I really have a ton of them here, but I have read a lot of them already. I want to highlight this one though, because I talked last time about test knits and how it's not necessary to test knit a sweater in every size. Oklahoma, Texas Sheep Lady says, Karen's story points out the value of test knitters. Perhaps the company didn't test knit in the smallest size. It seems like a test in the smallest, the largest, and one about mid-size would be prudent. Karen gets the prize for perseverance this month. And then Divinely Engineered replied and said, I agree. These aren't necessarily things a tech editor will notice. I don't think all sizes need to be tested, but a good range of them should, especially for paid-for patterns. I am going to go out on a limb and say that this pattern was not test knit by anyone. It was probably tech edited, probably not test knit. My experience of, and this is just my experience, I'm not saying it's true of every publication or every yarn company, but my experience of them does not have any test knitting in it. They don't test knit them. They tech edit them and then out they go, whether you paid for them or not. So test knitting is kind of an extra step that many designers do to avoid problems like Karen had last week. I do think, mistakes can get through the designer, the editor, and the test knitters. Mistakes can make their way through all of that. Having more checks and balances in there does help you find as many as possible. But I do think a tech editor should have caught that there was a whole extra repeat in there. It is, but sometimes they don't. I mean, we're all human beings. We all make mistakes. And so, okay. All right, the next segment is Charlotte Shows Off. For Christmas, Charlotte got one of those knitting looms, those round knitting looms that you've probably seen in the craft store. And if you're like me, you've looked at it and gone, I have no idea what that is. What even is that? So when Charlotte got one for Christmas, we had to read the directions and figure it out. And it's really very simple. It gives you basically a tube of knitting. So if you wanted to make a hat or a scarf that's a tube or any tube that you want, you can do that with one of these. So here is Charlotte showing that. All right. So this is the boy, and we got Gigi here, and Rocky's here. Oh my God!
I have a knitting loom.
Everybody's here, guys.
All right, Anson, let's go. We gotta leave. They're doing
All right.
segment. Sorry, I'm not here. I just haven't been doing any knitting.
Want your doggy?
Oh, he's such a good boy.
The fatty's
Fatty. He's blind.
All right, get out.
Aw.
Fat blind puppy.
Mom, can I talk to you before you're at this thing?
Yes. Can Rocky be in?
All right.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Are we ready?
I want to show my knitting loom. I got really frustrated, so I stopped it.
Why did you get frustrated? What happened? So we brought this out at Christmas when you got it from Grandma.
Yeah.
And then I haven't really seen it since then.
If she watches this podcast, I will be happy.
We loved it, Grandma. I don't think Grandma knows about the podcast.
She doesn't?
He's such a good. Rocky's such a good boy. You can move him in any way, and he's just fine with it.
Okay, I thought for a second I lost my knitting loom
You
stick.
need the little hook.
Yeah. So I think, where are we? I have.
Okay, Rocky,
Forgot.
I'm gonna put you down.
The
You go around
fat
your
dog
bed.
will leave.
He's not fat. He's a good boy.
You just said he was fat at the beginning.
Did I?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Okay, so I believe what you do is you go around and you loop it, right? You do it
Yeah,
like
we're
that. You
doing
go
the
around.
looping.
Yeah, and you do that. And
So,
then,
Here, can I just speed this up a little bit?
yeah, do it for us. Oops, sorry. And then
Hold my yarn.
on your loom, once you have 2 loops, Rocky's rolling around on the floor. Once you have 2 loops, you use this little picker thing to grab the bottom one and pull it over the top. And you go around and do that. And then you do this. Do you want to hold it up so they can see you?
One second. I just, this has a lot left. So
here, just hold it up so they can see the loops on there. So,
it's hard for me to see it.
yeah. So you can see that there's one there, and then she's putting a second one on. And then once she gets all the way around.
We get that piece and then we pick it, but
Here.
we pick the bottom one and then we flip it up.
Yeah. Do you want to, maybe I'll hold it? I'll hold this because we can come back and finish this later. Why don't you just show how to do it on
Okay.
that one? Can you see?
I'll do it on this one.
Can you see?
Actually,
there
yeah,
it
this
is.
one's a good idea.
And there's a little divot in there where you can get the hook in.
Yeah, they can see it.
It's a little tight. Can you do it?
Yeah, and then you just...
Yeah, and then you just take it over. It's hard to do. It's hard to do for show. But it's pretty easy. Do you think, so you can see she hasn't gotten too far. There's just a little bit in there. Do you think that you will continue with this?
I don't know, but I'm probably going to make it for Grandma Ginger.
Yeah,
because
she gave it to you.
She's the one who would want something like this.
She would. Well, and she gave you this tool.
She did.
Yeah. Okay, so that's how you use it, in case you've seen them in the store and have been wondering.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything, do you have one last thing that you might like to say, Shar?
Well...
Gigi's got a dance on part.
I'm
afraid you're going to poke me in the eye with this.
No.
No, it's too short.
Okay, bye. Bye. All right, knitting fantasies. My first pick is the Hug Me Tight sweater by Teplo Knitting. I really like this because most knitting patterns have positive ease, and there is a new trend in jeans lately that are wide leg. So I bought a pair of these jeans, and it is hard to style a pair of wide leg jeans because if you wear it with anything large on the top, you just look like this big shapeless bag lady. So I would love to have a sweater like this to wear with my wide leg jeans. That said, I don't think I would knit the thumb holes. Everything has thumb holes these days, and I don't tend to use them. I do prefer them in something I made more than something I bought, because on me, thumb holes always are right here. My arms are too long for my body, and so my thumbs almost never work in any thumb holes. But if I made the thing, I can make it work. This is knit in We Are Knitters Finita Aquamarine, which is a fingering weight yarn that's 70% merino, 30% alpaca. And I don't think I would pick that for a sweater like this. I think I would probably pick something that's a superwash and know that going in that it is gonna grow. But with fit and with drape, I don't like alpaca in something that's gonna fit that tightly. That's just me though. But I really like it. I would totally knit it. My second pick, also found on Etsy, is called Happy Mushrooms. Oh my gosh. We were scrolling and both Charlotte and I were like, oh, it's so cute. They're so happy. So these adorable mushrooms, there's no yarn weight listed. I think you could pretty much do whatever you wanted. Kind of looks like these are knit in different yarn weights. And they're also knit flat and seamed. But I just thought they were adorable. So, so cute. This is the Happy Mushroom pattern by Grey Bear Aquasrot. I think it was originally written in Polish. So there's that. Now, both of these patterns, if you're watching this podcast on Sunday, both of these patterns are currently on sale, and that sale ends today for some reason. They're not by the same designer, but if you're interested in either of these, go get them right now because they're both on sale. All right, so here's what happened. This week's story comes to me from Tammy, and Tammy has gotten a little philosophical on us, which I love. Love that. I love when we see kind of eternal truths echoed in our daily lives, particularly in our knitting. Tammy sent this to me on Christmas Eve, and she says, I just watched your Saturday podcast on YouTube. I started thinking about the time when my Bible study gave me homework that had me sitting quietly and listening for the Holy Spirit. I don't find it easy to just listen. I usually do all the talking. Gosh, really? Not me at all. Yes, I get it. She says, in order to help me, I decided to focus on the scrappy blanket I had sitting on the couch. While I was looking at it, it came to me that my life has been just like that blanket. I was knitting it using scraps of fingering weight yarn held double with bare yarn, and I realized that the scraps were like my life. Some were bright and some were dark. Some were sparkly and some were neutral. But the one thing that tied them all together was the strand of white. Just like my life, there have been bright times when I was married, when my children were born, and there were dark times when my sister died at 40, when my husband had an affair. We're still together, she says. During all my life, there has been one common thread, Jesus. He has walked with me and held me, and he still helps me see the joy and hope in the world. Like my life, my blanket is not finished, but I know that the light thread, Jesus, will be with me until the end. That is beautiful, Tammy, and hard. Oh my gosh, you're a strong woman. I admire you very, very much. That would be a really hard thing to have to go through. But I love that. I love that idea. Knitting a scrappy blanket is just like life. It absolutely is. Thank you so much, Tammy, for that wonderful story. If you have a knitting story, please send it to me. I have one for next week, but after that, I'm out. So, Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. Send me your hilarious, heartwarming, ridiculous, crazy knitting story, and I would love to share it on the podcast. As always, I would love a video because I want to see your face, but if you want me to read it for you, I can do that, or you can send an audio recording. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday. Hope you've got snow where you are. We just got a whole lot of nothing, rain. Anyway, I can knit in either one of these weathers, so it's all fine. Have a great Sunday, knitters. See you next week. Bye.